Did it work? I think it did.
No,
Are we here?
We're live.
I think so.
Awesome. How's everybody doing? Howdy. Welcome all y'all. Don, you're on fire already, son. I see your comments before the show even started. No, I'm watching you.
Well, they're for the IT security is for non-technical folks. Let's just get it out in the open.
That
it's
is
for people who read compliance report. No.
Governance.
People who read compliance
is for
reports,
non-technical people.
and then they hire actual technologists to come in and run a test, and then they go around and press everybody on the stuff that failed the test.
Got busted for surfing the porn at work, did you?
No. So the security guy was saying to me, I managed about 25,000 laptop installation across North America, Europe, and NZ. And the guy was giving me a hard time because we had X amount of laptops that were out of patch compliance. The reason they were out of patch compliance is because people were not turning the laptops on. They're sitting in drawers or file cabinets or whatever it is. And I had to explain to the guy, I'm like, bro, they're not being turned on. I can't patch a powered off machine.
That's a compliance guy doing that. That's not security.
And he's like, he worked for the InfoSec team. And he's like, well, I'm going to need a way for you to patch these machines. And I'm like, get them turned on. You know what I mean? I was like, it's a user issue. It's not a technology issue. He didn't seem to understand that.
Well, there are compliance people and governance people, and then there are people who actually know what they're doing.
And they work for the consultants to come in and do the actual testing for you.
Whatever. So now that we've shit all over my career choices, thank you very much, jackass. Hayden, welcome to the show. Happy Thursday.
Happy Friday. Isn't it Friday?
For Hayden, it's like
for Hayden?
What 10 o'clock in the morning over there, down there tomorrow. Hayden is from the future. So we're going to talk about repeaters tonight. I was going to go around the room, but now I don't care about some of these people down there. They're big old poopy heads.
He's a bit snippy.
He's. I don't think he had his
even behind the scenes. It was like
all of you started it on me today. I was just in here happy, minding my business, and then y'all started it on me.
Happy as a pig and poopy.
That's right.
Oh Lord, Chuck, what's going on with you? Hayden, we'll come back to you because you're the guest, so we like to listen to you talk a long time.
I thought you meant.
I've been playing with my hex beam some more. I redid the gap between my thing. Well, yeah, you can poke it out.
Mind the gap.
Just fixing things up, making it better.
Go on, Chuck. I know you want to.
About that size.
It's 1.56, I think. Millimeters.
Hold it up, Chuck.
It's really.
Oh, that's
really
tiny.
Small. But that all has to do with the size of the metal. Yeah, it has to do with the actual size of the material.
If they were rubbing together, that would be a problem.
I don't think anyone spelt my name right correctly in the chat in this stream yet.
Harden. Hey, Jim. Harden.
Harden.
It's autocorrect. Jim's driving.
It is the night show.
Have you got a Miller Lite?
It's after work.
Harden's got to go to work after this.
Have you got a Miller Lite?
I have about 8 of them in a cooler upstairs.
I think you had 8 of them before you got to the show.
Chilling on ice. I didn't know I would need them for the show.
Don is asking what the plastic box is for.
I was going to write. That's a Ballon.
Okay.
It's got a 1-to-1 in there.
Don doesn't
technically
believe in that
you're supposed to have it. Well, you're technically supposed to have them.
You damn right.
I don't know.
Doc Brad is asking how Twinkle Twinkle Periwinkle's doing. I thought this was going to be the CB show.
Yeah, no,
I thought it was too.
CB show.
I did too.
I didn't have all the parts until last night, and I ain't had time to mess with it. We actually turned it on and looked at it and talked CBs in the FEP Labs private Zoom call last night.
Oh, really?
So if you want to be a member, if you want to be a member
with us first
Zoom call, no, I did not. I shared with my paying supporters.
Asshole.
Well, I sent y'all a picture the minute I opened the box. I posted it in our private chat. I said, "Look here, what I got." Boys.
Yeah, it wasn't even on.
Well, no, it wasn't on. I was sitting on the couch, son. I was chilling. I was chillaxing. It's time for my program.
Dare you?
You never did show me. Does the top have vents? Does the top have vents on it?
Yes.
Vents.
Oh, you got the new one. You get the version 2.
Is this the one I have to add the jumper or take away the jumper?
That's the version 2. I don't know. It's kind of hit or miss on that part.
I haven't.
But
popped
that's
it open
the
yet.
that's version 2, which has a few extra goodies.
What's that thing weigh? About half a pound?
They're
There's
super
nothing
probably,
inside.
probably about 2 pounds.
Yeah,
It's kind of hefty because it is. It's not as heavy as I would have thought for the size. But
the board's about this big.
I even made a thumbnail for the.
We did.
Yeah,
when we have our
for the
CB show.
Oh, look at and the antennas are pointed forward like they're not supposed to.
right.
Perfect.
Just took
He's
a lot of
throwing
work.
that RF forward.
Where was
And
that
I'm-
taken, Jim?
He's got. That's a picture from.
That reminds
somewhere.
them what direction they're going.
I think that's from Dayton last year.
Is
Probably
it?
It's from.
Were you on the highway?
or Orlando.
Oh.
Who knows?
5'9", everybody. Happy 5'9".
And then Ape got my. I'm backwards because my call sign looks like WITW on the hat.
Well, we know you're not Witwa.
Witwa. Buford Gene Justice. Ooh, that's a good.
I always
that's a
get
good
your
handle.
call sign wrong and search for the wrong one in QRZ. I put in W1TW.
So anyway, this is the CB.
It's a
striker.
it's a 10-meter radio. Really, it's not really a CV
That's right.
yet.
Jim's not breaking any laws on the air.
At this time.
Everyone's
Ape,
5'9"
what's
every
going on
day
with
for me,
you?
Chris.
You got some new things in the works? You got something
Nothing.
planned, I know.
Nothing.
You ain't gonna talk
Absolutely
about it.
nothing.
Okay. All right. You still in the closet on stuff. Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Hang on, what have you been doing lately? You've been doing like antennas and myth busting and all that sort of stuff.
Oh Lord.
I have. So we we did a off-center fed dipole stream on Sunday. I think is what it was.
Well,
And then we did some QRP myth busting, and I'm not going to talk about QRP people anymore because the internet knows no fury like an upset QRPer.
That's almost as bad as a vegan, man.
Right?
Right.
You can barely
Worse.
hear them, but they're there, and so I've just laid off on the QRPers.
I
Thanks,
think we
Chris.
need to play some music or dance or something for this. I mean,
Yeah,
Chris.
thank you. Thank you, Chris. That was awful nice.
10 free.
You got him.
It's been a long time.
look at him go. Look at him go. He's gonna pop a bead of sweat.
Yeah, he is. He just about passed out
Chris,
No, I'm
thank
fine,
you.
man.
and fell over
We all
backwards.
got those. Let's see. Ted W, Pamela, Enlightened Observer, The Happy Ham, Devin Anderson, David Barksdale, Ryan K5TAR, Florida Todd, Roy Maynard, and Matt Wolf. Very
That's
good.
awesome.
It's
So
big in there.
they want us to talk
Like-
a little bit about QRP. So have you guys seen Goodwill Hunting? Have you seen the movie Goodwill Hunting?
No.
Yeah.
There's a scene
I
in
have, but
there
it's been
where
a while.
Mork from Mork is talking to Ben Affleck's friend, and he's explaining to him that all the problems of his childhood were not his fault. And then Ben Affleck's friend just starts crying and hugging him and all that. That's exactly what happens when you go to a QRP meeting, right? QRP is anonymous. And they tell them, they say, look, nobody heard you. Nobody answered. You didn't make any contacts. It's not your fault. It was the propagation was the problem that day, not you. And then they go on to say, like, and they've even said this in my comments, right? That it's like, well, I don't even tell people that I operate QRP anymore because they just don't want to work. They don't want to make contacts. They don't want to have to dig a signal that's 15 dB below the noise floor. It's their fault, not mine. And
Like we can't tell already, right?
So they're like
Right.
millennials? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they immediately go into victim mode. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like
Right.
all these other hams don't answer me because they know I'm QRP. No, it's because they can't hear you. That's why they don't answer you. It makes zero
right.
sense.
That's right.
Luckily, we're talking about QRP repeaters today, Abe.
We are, and I have no idea what Walt posted. Somebody was asking me. I have no idea what he said.
All right. So,
I don't either.
and Scout didn't like that movie because there was no actual hunting in it. So,
Was there any goodwill in it?
No.
never saw it.
No.
Any good what?
Goodwill.
Oh, Goodwill. Maybe. I don't
After
know.
I saw Matt Damon just lose his mind on Jimmy Kimmel, and I saw how he was personified in Team America World Police, that was all I needed to know about Matt Damon.
Right.
That's all we have time for.
Yeah.
Didn't have time for Matt Damon.
Or the story about that thing that Jim did the other day.
Right. You guys.
Let's not say anything about that.
Steve, what are you up to?
I went out today looking for a new RV again, and all I found was disappointment.
So
What model's that?
Disappointment and despair.
You can't find them, or they're overpriced?
Yeah, there's
or
some
all
weird
the
stuff
above?
going on. Like people don't trade in toy haulers, and then the ones that would have traded them
They
in, the
fall
market's
apart.
currently going crazy because of this alleged flex issue. That was hard to say. So
Flame
it's
flex.
crazy. Yeah, Mike is right. More disappointment after you buy the fifth wheel. Yeah, it's a weird world. So we looked at one today. We it's like, I guess we'll get it. I don't know. And then we drove home, and now it's like, no, we're not getting it.
That sounds like
So-
buyer's remorse waiting to happen there, dude.
Yeah, like we had pre-buyer's remorse.
Have you seen a company called Escalade? I don't know if they still make them or not. They made really nice ones at one time.
Yeah, Wayne, we're headed your way, man. That's going to be the next place is the other side. We were in Minnesota today looking.
And Starman is defending Ape.
Thank
Don't
you,
encourage
Starman.
him. but-
Starman is ape in incognito mode on YouTube.
That's
I think.
my other browser.
I was thinking it might be cornbread
You
in
weren't supposed to say
incognito mode.
anything,
I'm
man.
not sure.
He's
If it was
found
cornbread, it would be in all caps.
No, that's on his phone.
Well, Hayden, guys, if you don't know, this is Ham Radio DX, Mr. Hayden Honeywood, VK7HH. And he is not from around here.
Not from around these parts.
He ain't. And we brought Hayden on because he is really knowledgeable about repeaters. So we're going to.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well, but he can fake it better than we can. So just like your girlfriend, he's going to fake it. And we'll see what we find out. Come on, that intro. You need
Who
to,
are you talking to there?
You.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. What do you want to know?
I want to know
Repeaters.
what the problem is. So, didn't you have some problems with your repeater? Can you explain that?
Yeah, his
did.
repeater needed a blue pill.
It did. my repeater, well, not my repeater, our club repeater that I built. It had someone's smoke alarm needs a new battery.
It's TO's. It's got to be.
I don't even have one here. It
That's
doesn't need a new
dangerous,
battery. It doesn't
Dude,
exist.
it's totally you. It didn't start until you started filming on that location.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
true.
not me. Not me. You guys want to come over here and look? Come on.
It's too cold up there, son.
I was almost a 63 today, Jim. You'd have loved it.
Almost 63.
Almost
Woo.
63. Yeah,
It's like
I'm still wearing a
93
jacket.
today.
All right, back to Hayden. You guys keep
So-
running this off course here.
So my repeater had an issue where one day in the morning, I usually, switch on, and I was listening to someone talking on it, but it was really weak. It's usually not that weak because it's not that far away from me. It was like, it's pinning the end of the meter, pinning the end of the S meter. And then I thought, well, that's a bit strange. So it was about an S2 or S3. So it had dropped quite a bit. So I did some calculations, realized how much it dropped, and I went for a drive up there and realized that after some testing, realized that the antenna had gone really bad, almost open circuit. So that was the latest problem with it, but rectified that. So that's working again now.
So, what
And,
caused it to go open circuit almost?
Well, so we don't know yet because we haven't pulled it down because we got to get permission to go up and remove it. But this has happened before, and I think that it's a power handling issue. I don't think the antenna that we got for the job can handle the power continuously. So repeaters, obviously, they run FM and they run power, so 100% duty cycle all the time, and so sometimes they can be transmitting for quite a long time. And it failed just after we have a weekly broadcast. So we put a news broadcast out for an hour on a Sunday, and it failed just after that. So it would have been transmitting for at least, probably an hour and 20 minutes, including all the callbacks. And we put in about 50 watts into it. So it's probably the power rating on it is rated at 100 watts. But I'm
But that's
a bit
probably
dubious.
not it. This is a 10-meter antenna.
No, this is 2 meters.
Okay. You have a 10-meter repeater too, right?
I got a 10-meter repeater too. Yeah. But I'm a bit dubious as to the power capabilities of this antenna. So we swapped it over to a backup antenna, and it's been fine ever since. So, but
And you're able to
yeah,
have your weekly net.
we don't have any nets on there, so we just have our broadcasts, our news broadcasts.
He's going to get started on that next.
You were the one talking about nets before the show, not me. I'm a fan.
I was in. Okay.
Look, how else would I know
This
the weather
is
5 miles
alternative
away?
truth, is what you guys hear. This is alternative truth.
No, I'm just saying, how else would I know the weather 5 miles away if we didn't have a morning
right.
mania net?
Right. That's right. That's a good
Morning
point.
mania net.
The status of everyone else's gout, their colon health, and everything else. Yeah.
I don't know, Josh, if we do have a VKY on it. I think there actually might be one. So there you go. There is actually an Allstar. They're called Allstar Australian Ladies Amateur Radio Association here. So
Sheila net. I figured they would call it
a Sheila
Yeah,
net.
really.
Yeah.
The Sheila net.
Yeah. Hey, can you
Bloody
just someone bring up my slide that I've got there talking about antennas? I did a presentation a little while ago for the Sri Lankan Amateur Radio Association, which is like the ARRL of Sri Lanka, and we were talking about repeaters, and one of them is the slides I did was on antennas here, and here's a photo of one of the main antennas this is an old repeater site that we used to have, but that kind of antenna is called a folded dipole antenna, which we use currently. That's the backup antenna that I switched to. So, and they can handle high power, and they're also very wide banded, so they can work on a wide frequency range, good SWR, and you can also anyway. That's a photo of one of the antennas, or similar to what we use now.
So with some of these repeater antennas, won't they, and I don't think stacking, maybe it is the right word, but you'll take 2 or 3 of these folded dipoles and mount them one on top of each other to get more gain. Am I talking crazy there?
Yep. No, you can. So there's different ways that you can stack them. You can stack them horizontally, but that doesn't really, that's not all that good. It's better to stack them vertically, so one over the other on the tower. So I use a program that many of you would be familiar with, MMANA. So I can model these antennas, and you can then adjust the spacing and adjust how far out from the tower they need to be, how much vertically they need to be separated. And then you can model the pattern, so the pattern that you want for the repeater, because not all repeaters want completely omnidirectional coverage. Okay, you might think that they want completely omnidirectional coverage, but sometimes that's not the case. So you can adjust the pattern for the coverage area that you want to cover the most. So so there's that. With stacking them, you need to use phasing harnesses, which basically mean that the RF reaches each antenna equally at the same time. There's 2 ways of doing it. One is having the phasing harness outside between the 2 antennas, which the problem with that is that you need to be good with your waterproofing. You need to have to make sure no water's going to get in, because otherwise that messes up your day big time. So the better way to do it, and the way that we commonly do it when we do this, is we measure out on the ground a feed lines, so our feed line down from each antenna, and we run the same length from each antenna exactly, and then we put our phasing harness inside so that there's no water going to get in, and that's the way that we run that. So
Repeater
you can
hacks
have
by Hayden.
2, 4, yeah. Don asks, why aren't there any 20-meter repeaters? Well, FM is pretty wide. FM's like 20. You can cover an FM channel if it's a wideband channel, 25 kilohertz. That's a big slice of spectrum in 20 meters.
Rod had a question as well. How often should a good ham check the SWR on their UHF, VHF antennas? Mobile installs need checked more often? Yes, no?
Actually, Rod's got an interesting point. When my repeater signal strength went down, the first thing I thought of was, it might be my mobile antenna on my vehicle. Maybe I've damaged it. So I tested it on another repeater and it was fine. So I check it. I check mine every now and then. Not that often.
I'm going to say
I'd say that if you're mobile, I'd say your mobiles are more likely to get messed up just from hitting
vibration and whacking.
Vibrations.
Yeah, whacking.
I just whacked a tree with mine today.
Yeah.
Whoops.
It's pretty high though, but
well, you got to have more.
The other problem.
More
the other problem
with
with your home ones is water infiltration. Probably. Sorry.
With your home installations.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a bigger deal though on phased, right? Because the water's going to impact the timing of the phase harness. I would assume that's the issue there. Besides just water in it.
I'm talking about just a regular antenna, just like a lot of your like comets and your stuff like that have joints. You can get water in there, and that will mess them up.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have a phasing harness with water in it, then it's going to adjust. It's going to change your impedance, and then if you've got a different impedance to one antenna than the other, then you're going to get SWR reflections. You're going to get pattern changes. You're going to get all sorts of things messing up stuff. So. Yeah, best to keep the water out. Side Boom wants to know about 11-meter repeaters. Yeah, build them, put them up, put heaps of them up, get them on the air.
They will come.
Do it. Lots of FM repeaters all along 11 meters.
Yeah, well, culturally, there's really no bandwidth restrictions in 11 meters.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the lowest frequency band that we can have FM repeaters on is 10 meters, so the top end of 10 meters, because 10 meters is a pretty wide band. So there's quite a few 10-meter repeaters which operate, and they don't get as much attention as SSB because you need a lot higher signal strength to work through a repeater on 10 meters than you do for SSB. So it's it's one of those things. Don, 80 meters is wide. Not really. How wide's 80 meters in the US? It's like 200 kilohertz, isn't it?
No, it's like close to a megahertz, I think.
Almost 75 and 80.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, how long?
10 is 2 megahertz almost. Maybe.
What have you?
Yeah, 2.
So what have you got? What's the 80 meter band over there? 3.
It's going to be
you go up to 4.
3.5 to 4. It's 500 kilohertz.
Yeah, that's 500 kilohertz.
Well, the data portion is 3.5 to 3.6, and then 3.6 to 4 is not data.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of operating on 80, but I think part of the challenge is that getting wide bandwidth on an antenna.
A lot.
Right, getting bandwidth on an 80 meter antenna, just given the nature and size, is difficult, right?
But in the context of repeaters, if you're talking like an 80 meter repeater, you'd only be able to fit 20 channels in. You'd actually have to halve that because you'd need an input as well. So you'd only be able to fit like 10 channels in.
Right.
To wideband, 25 kilohertz channels to make sure they don't overlap, and then you've got 250 kilohertz, so that's 10 channels, and then you would have the input, so that's another 250 kilohertz. Whereas on 10 meters, you do have, and this is the funny thing, 10 meters is such a wide band, but only a very small portion of it is allocated to repeaters, from 29.620 to 29.680 is the outputs. There's like 4 channels. So that's why almost every repeater in the world on 10 meters has got another one on the same frequency, and they interfere with each other all the time. So ham to it hertz. Aren't all repeaters FM 25 kilohertz bandwidth? No, some can be narrowband, so they can be 12.5 kilohertz bandwidth.
Yeah, digital.
And we're talking
repeaters.
Channel bandwidth as well. Yeah,
digital
talking channel
bandwidth will be
bandwidth.
a lot narrower.
Digital repeaters. I know people that have run digital on through repeaters, but they've run digital on like 40 meters and stuff. Like C4 FM and things.
Yep.
People get a bit upset because it's a bit wide, but there's no rule.
I'm like, just pretend you're on 80 meters. It's normal. It'd be all right.
There's a band plan, which is a gentleman's agreement. It's not a rule.
Right.
But you do have to be courteous and make sure that you don't interfere with other people, of course.
Josh is saying that even the techs can't use the 10-meter repeater. So what a lot of people do is they'll link.
Really?
Yeah. Well, what they do is they link a 2-meter repeater with a 10-meter repeater. and then the person can transmit into the 2-meter repeater, and then the station owner of the 2-meter repeater is responsible for the transmissions that get rebroadcast or retransmitted. I don't know what the appropriate word that doesn't upset hams is, on 10 meters. It's actually one of the questions, I believe, for the general exam.
We had that same issue here. Although everyone can be on 10 meters, it was referring to other repeaters like 6 meters and 23 centimeters. Some stations can't operate on repeaters on those bands. So what our regulator ended up doing was they were just like, as long as the originating frequency that you're on is on a frequency that you're designated, it doesn't matter. So they don't care if people create loopholes or create links or whatever. It's
common. It's common here in North America.
And Ken has an excellent point here anyway, which is some of the questions I had for you later. Allstar has a lot of use as a repeater controller, and then a lot of people just interlink a repeater with an Allstar node too. So there are ways.
Yeah, all of my repeaters now are pretty much almost all Allstar linked or controlled, including my 10-meter repeater. That's got an Allstar link. I can't find any others that have a 10-meter, in Allstar where you've got the frequency where you can report it to the database. I tried to search to see if there was another 10-meter repeater on there, but I couldn't find one. So I don't know if it's the only one on there. I doubt it, but...
how many repeaters do you have, Hayden? You're like, one of my many.
You mean how many have I built? Or how...
Just the truth, man. Don't try and make stuff up.
I'm trying to count.
Right, it's like he's acting like he's on trial here. Is it in ham court, son?
What? How many that I look after, or how many that I built?
How about we'll start with looking after.
How many do you get yelled at if they break?
5, maybe. There's probably 5 that I look after. I think
5. Are they all at the same place, or are they spread around?
No, they're spread around. One's a multi-linked system, so it's voted and simulcast. So if you include that, you could probably say that that's X, because that's, they're all different sites. So that's probably about 4 or 5 sites. So yeah, it's pretty.
And you're
big.
the guy that does maintenance and all these things.
Yep. James.
Well, damn.
And then I've probably built, I don't know, 15 or 20 of them for all around Australia.
So if you're going to build them, I mean, obviously you went to cans, right? Like we like talking about cans here. So let's talk about cans. Walk us through the can selection process.
The can selection. I think I've got a slide for that too. I do. Look at this. I came prepared.
4
slides.
No, that means 4 tumblers left.
Don is talking about tumblers, and we got 4.
Present my slides again.
Don's going to get them all out. Yeah.
Don was one of the first orders we had, not the first.
You can always count on Don.
But he was one of the first few. Mm-hmm.
So here's a picture of some nice cans. These ones are for 2 meters because of the length. So that's roughly about a quarter wave on 2 meters, about half a meter, whatever that is in feet. 1.5 feet?
Sure.
So this is known as a duplex. This is known as a duplexer. So basically the jobs of the duplexer is to split the transmitter. The job of the duplexer is to stop the transmitter from getting into the receiver and the receiver from being able to hear the transmitter, because when you transmit so close in frequency to another, you can wipe it out. So that does that by these tuned cavity filters. So they have low loss, or try to have low loss. And then they have isolation, what we call isolation. So they reject the other side. So the transmit filters reject the receive, and the receive filters reject the transmit. And then you can basically what we call duplex, so transmit and receive at the same time into one antenna.
So on those filters, are those adjustable, or do you can tune those on the fly if you need to, or you have to buy a certain frequency?
No, okay. So you need to buy a certain frequency range or build your own. I've built my own as well. So in the middle there, you can just see it in that photo. There's like a little tuning lever, and what that does is on this diagram down here, you can see there's like a plunger. And what that does is it mechanically changes the length here of the filter, and also electrically changes it as well at the same time. So you adjust that in and out for your notch here. So you can, sorry, not your notch, sorry, your pass here. So the frequency you want to pass. And then there's like a capacitor that's on between what we call coupling loops. So coupling loops basically couple the RF energy into the cavity and then couple it out again. And there's a capacitor that you put in series here, and that adjusts your reject notch depth here. And then what you do is you then couple them in series, so you have one cavity into another cavity into another cavity, and then the result is cumulative. You get more and more reject dB, more dBs is what you get. So that's the job of a cavity. So 2 meter filters are not too bad because they're not too big. 70 centimeters, you can get them like right down small in like, little package like this. But once you start to get to 6 meters, they start to get quite big. I built a 6 meter duplexer before, and then 10 meters is too big. That's like over 2.5 meters high. It's bigger than me. So, and they're very rare. You don't see many of those. I know people that have built them though, but yeah. That's
what do
the
you
job
use
of a duplexer.
to actually do this tuning? Like you're using your HP test set. Is that what you're doing? Or
No, he uses a Nano VNA.
He uses
tool
a
ever.
rig expert probably.
So you can
you
use
ain't using a rig expert with a single port, son.
You can use a tracking generator. So whatever device you track that's got a tracking generator in it. So my HP service monitor has a tracking generator in it. So what a tracking generator is it on one port it basically outputs wideband RF on the frequency that you're tuning to. So like a bit like on your a bit like on your Tiny SA. You know how you can select a range, so like a bandwidth. It'll output RF on that just continuously in a sweep, and then you've got like an antenna input, and so basically you can send RF, this wideband RF, into one port, come out of the cavity, and then back into your service monitor, and that's where you get this sweep.
Yes, I guess my question is service monitor, but your service monitor doesn't have a built-in tracking generator, or are you using a different signal?
No, it does.
So like, tracking generators are typically a synchronized signal that goes with the sweep speed, right? A lot of people ask if they can use Nano.
If you use
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, no. So I think I was just about to answer exactly what you were going to explain. So you may as well keep going.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of people say use Nano VNAs to tune these things, but one of the things that you're talking about is isolation needs to be as high as possible, greater than 90 dB, right? So you run into a particular problem with dynamic range when you do that, right? You need a device with that high dynamic range, which is why I was asking which device you're using to do the tuning.
Yeah, I mean, with a Nano VNA, you could probably add external attenuation, but you're still going to struggle a little bit. I think because Nano VNAs, you can use the second port as an output, can't you? But it's not quite the same. I don't think I know people that have tried to tune cavities with Nano VNAs, and it's a bit fiddly. You can do it, but it's a bit fiddly. So,
well, let me just show you something real quick.
Oh boy.
So, this is the Nano VNA H4, which is pretty popular. And if you look at the measurement range, which is fourth line down, you get your dynamic range. The greatest is from 50 to 300 megahertz, which is only 70 dB. And then because the way that it works via harmonics, right? It's a Silicon Labs. It's an SIS. I think 1550 is the chip that it uses to generate the sound. But with each set of each harmonic relationship up, so when you go from 300 megahertz to 300 to 900 megahertz, you lose like 10 dB of dynamic range, and then even higher you lose more. Now, obviously, with a 2 meter repeater, you're at below 300, so you're not worrying about that harmonic stuff, but you only get 70 dB. And then this is actually my Nano VNA going into a spectrum analyzer. And so the blue arrow is my fundamental signal. And I think it was 200. I think I did it at 200 megahertz. But you can see the harmonics of that is how it works. So you can see like the blue, and then the red would be the second harmonic. You can see that it's lower, right? So you would lose that dynamic range.
Yeah, if you've only got 70 dB of dynamic range, then you're going to get, I'm going to say you're going to get close. it's, I mean, 20 dB between 70 and 90 is quite a bit, but you're going to get close. If you had nothing else, I mean, I wouldn't be tuning 2 meter repeater cavities with the Nano VNA. I'd be using something else, definitely. But something like 70 centimeters, you could probably get away with that, because the other thing that you have is you increase your isolation with the further split you have. So, when you program your split in your radio, which is 5 megahertz on 70 centimeters, that means that the transmit and receive frequencies are 5 megahertz apart. So you don't need as much isolation between those two. So if you've only got an Nano VNA with that much range, you could probably just operate a repeater off one antenna with about, what was it? I think you said 60 dB dynamic.
70 dB at up to 300. Now there's
so I'm talking
newer
about
versions.
UHF, though.
Yeah, there's newer versions of Nano VNAs, but they're significantly higher priced. That'll give you more dynamic range on that. But
yeah. So I think my service monitor is like 120 dB dynamic range or something, or 100 dB dynamic range. So it's a lot.
Right.
They're making fun of me in the chat. All the work I do for you people, and then you have the nerve to come in here and sass mouth me. What did I do?
Hayden, in Australia, do you guys use the same kind of splits that we do? 5 for UHF and 0.6 for VHF?
Yep. The only difference, I think, is 6 meters. You have 0.5 in some places.
Yeah,
we use 1.
Or 1.
Yeah, we use
I've
1
seen
everywhere.
1. Okay.
Yep. 10 meters is 100 kilohertz, so you can't run 10 meter repeaters off one antenna without massive filters, and even then it would be very hard to do. So that's usually why we use split site. So we separate them out by a couple of miles, and then link them together with a UHF link or a 900 megahertz link if you're in the US.
So can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
James, we're not going to talk about my cavity search. Thank you very much. Sorry, what?
So when you were talking about the 10 meter repeaters, you want your TX and RX sites separated, right? So you don't have to worry about the isolation. And you were saying
you get isolation from separating them out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you were saying that you use a 900 megahertz link to hook those together. So how does that work?
Well, in the US you can use 900. We can't use that. We use 440 megahertz link. But you have at one site your 10 meter receiver, and you basically pipe that into the audio from that and the control signals from that into your controller at the receive site. And then your transmitter is your UHF link. And then at the other site, you have your UHF receiver, which just listens to everything that's on that happening over at that other site and just transmits it out on your 10 meter output frequency on your 10 meter transmitter.
Now, could you do that over the internet, for example, too, over a data link or? Yeah,
it wouldn't be.
So that's how I
do if you did that.
So that's how I do mine with my Allstar system.
That's
I have
where I was going with that.
So I pipe all of my receivers via Allstar back to a controller, which looks at the signal strength of each receiver and then pipes out the best one to the transmitter, which is all over the internet, all using Allstar.
So when you talk about repeater controllers now, what is the repeater controller doing exactly?
Actually, it's funny. Did I have a slide on repeater controllers?
I mean, you told me you had more PowerPoints than Abe, so I'm waiting to see them.
Yeah, I do cover repeater controller bits. Basically, what a repeater controller does is controls the repeater.
Oh, boy.
So what you do is you have...
What in the hell?
So you have connections from your receiver. So you have audio from your receiver. You have your squelch or your COR or your mute, whatever you want to call it, signal, to tell the controller when the receiver is actually receiving a signal.
Okay.
And then you have other signals like maybe CT, CSS, tone. So when it receives a valid tone, you'll get a logic 1 or a logic 0. Same way that the squelch works. That all goes into a repeater controller. And then what the controller does is it processes the audio. You know, it'll have an audio amplifier on it. It'll add in the identification, so either CW or voice idents. Right. It'll do the timeout timer so that you don't the transmitter's not on all day. So 3 or 5 minutes. It'll also do the what did I say? I said identing, timeout timer. Some repeater controllers you can also control like a fan, so that when your repeater transmits, the fan comes on to keep it cool. And then on the transmit side, then the audio goes through the controller into the transmitter. Push to talk goes into the transmitter to tell it when to turn on. And yeah, that's basically the job of the repeater controller. There's more advanced controllers that can do all sorts of fancy things, but yeah, that's a basic controller. So now some have link ports as well.
You mentioned you were using Allstar for yours. So are you running Allstar on Pis, or you got regular desktop size PCs or something like that, or mini PCs?
So my repeater controller is a ham VoIP image which runs on a Raspberry Pi.
On Pi, okay.
And that has the config file app is rpt.conf. That was the whole point. The whole point of Allstar was basically to link repeaters together. And it also just happens to, there's that smoke alarm again. It just so happens. It just so that's, you must check your frequency range, Ape. You might be getting a bit old there.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad.
But yeah, Allstar also has a fully fledged repeater controller all built into it. So not just for links and stuff like that. So you can configure that. So basically all of my controlling is done in software, and then it interfaces to a piece of hardware on the end of a Cat5 cable. So
okay.
Yeah.
So all the interface is done over network, or is it a serial cable? Or you said Cat5, so I assume network, or
network, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got a piece of hardware that's not with me at the moment. It's over on the bench there, but that interfaces to the repeater. So it brings all of those signals. So the receiver audio, the Squelch line, the CTCSS, the PTT, it does all of that elsewhere, and my controller sits in the rack. So that, and then it uses all that information sent down the internet from it. So yeah.
So the repeater controller integrates a whole lot of kind of advanced functions. But now do they still make basic repeaters anymore, or is that even not a thing without a repeater controller?
Like the Retivas.
Well, yeah. I mean, me and T.O. did an episode of Nuggets on that ghetto Baofeng repeater thing, which just basically hooks two radios together, and it freaking worked. But I mean, do I have to have a repeater controller, or can I have basically an innie and an outie?
Well, the only thing that you need, as far as regulation is concerned, is you need the repeater to identify. So that's where repeater controllers come in. So if you just hook a receiver up to a transmitter, there's two problems that you've got. Is one, it won't identify because you've got unless you hook up another board or something like that to identify every 10 minutes that it's in use. You also won't have a timeout timer. So if for some reason the receiver locks up on a signal, the transmitter is going to be on forever as well. So,
yeah, I don't think that matters in Florida, though. Aren't they exempt from the identification? And
they are exempt from everything.
Yeah.
See, this is the other thing that I don't understand about your repeater systems over there, and someone in the chat might be able to answer this, is that when we want a repeater set up here, we have to put in an application to the FCC equivalent here and say, hey, we want to put a repeater up. And what they do is they put in all the frequencies to make sure that it doesn't interfere with anyone else. And they, put in all spreadsheets and do all the calculations. And then they come back and say, yep, you can do that. Whereas
here we have state and local kind of regional repeater councils.
They're coordinators or
coordinators. Right. Yeah.
But you can have
an
uncoordinated.
Go through them?
No, you do not
have to.
So then what happens? So basically, if you interfere with a public service installation because you've gone and put your two Baofangs up on top of a site, and the harmonics of those are going to mix together with another transmitter, and then that's going to then re-radiate on the fire department's receiver, does that mean that the FCC get involved and it's nothing to do? The coordinators just go, hey, we didn't coordinate it. We don't care.
Well, they would say that's an uncoordinated one, but also I don't think the coordinator is liable for the integrity of the repeater site. So if you have spurs and harmonics on other frequencies, I think it's going to be the repeater controller, the person who owns it, right, is going to be the one
Can
who's
you
called
start that question from James, by the way? Sorry. I'll
But
get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the issue. But the thing is, if the FCC does come to you about this, I notice a lot of ham tubers are doing legal advice on channels these days. What I would do is I would claim that I'm a sovereign citizen, and as a result of my birthright, I am absolved from following any legislation that I did not authorize myself. And I would tell them
Is that proper legal advice from you?
Well, I'm just telling you what I would do. I'm not giving legal advice. And then I would tell them that I have a First Amendment right to freedom of speech. And I would not address the fact that it has nothing to do with the ability to broadcast or transmit a signal, but it's my God-given right. And that's what I would say.
Ham Till It Hurts jokes about that, but that's basically what Australia was built on, was convicts from the United Kingdom.
Sentenced to transportation at Her Majesty's pleasure.
Can you imagine that? So you're a criminal in the UK, and it's, pouring down with rain, and it's all miserable and everything.
Australia.
And they're like, we're going to send you to Sydney, prime beaches, beautiful surf,
right?
So that
coconuts.
I'd be like, I'd just go just for the weather.
I'm going to rob another bank, so I have to stay a long time.
This sounds good.
I always wondered about the logic of that whole thing, but
I think everyone didn't realize how good it was.
I mean, we left England. Most of us just said, we hate this place. King George sucks. We're leaving. You guys got kicked out. So I don't know.
But yeah, the coordination here is a little bit different. So the coordination's done by the regulator, and then it's nothing to do with us to like help us out. It's basically to make sure that due diligence has been done to make sure that nothing interferes with anything else. And for the most part, it actually works pretty well. We don't really have any major issues. So,
you probably have better public school there, right? So where people actually are a little bit more educated about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain?
Yep. Not like
can you explain the purpose of the squelch tail? Because I think that's something that everybody wants to know about. I know it keeps me up at night.
I can. Can we go back to that question though from James that he popped up earlier?
You're talking about the quirky James.
Yeah. So this one, do any repeaters have a link to any form of civilian voice comms like an internet phone patch, Skype? No, they don't, because historically we've had a ruling that amateur radio wasn't allowed to be connected to the public telecommunications network here. Since the last couple of years, they've relaxed that, and auto patches are not really that popular. They're super popular in America. Well, they were back when phone calls were expensive and stuff like that, and you didn't have mobile phones. Now it's not really a thing. The other thing too is that I think public access to the public phone network means something different. Some people interpret it as I couldn't connect it to the internet, and other people interpret it as I can't make the public be able to access this. And I'm pretty sure that it's the latter. So I can connect my phone up using a SIP connection to my repeater if I want to through Allstar. Right. That's easy to do. But it's not available to the public. No, I can't make phone calls on it. As far as Ape's question, what was that? What do you want to explain? You want the squelch explained?
The squelch tail.
Yeah.
Squelch tail. You mean the repeater tail?
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it a squelch tail.
When you unkey and the repeater keeps talking.
Okay, because I'd call squelch tail something different. Squelch tail, I would say, is the noise that you hear after you unkey on the repeater, and if you hear that, then the repeater person that built it hasn't built it properly. The repeater tail at the end...
Spams are going to get upset with you for saying something like that.
The repeater tail at the end is called a hang timer. So basically is how long afterwards it transmits dead air with no audio. I set my... So that basically... Usually you'll have a beep.
You're choking on those words he said earlier.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
usually you'll have a courtesy tone, a beep. Once you hear the beep, that's when the timeout timer's reset, right? Now, the tail can usually, it's up to the discretion of whoever built the repeater, but I usually have a 10-second tail. I have mine for a long time. after the beep. And the reason I built it like that is so that if anyone is scanning and someone ka-chunks the repeater, because everyone ka-chunks repeaters.
Not me.
If anyone's scanning, your scanner will stop and you have time to turn around, or your radio will stop and you have time to turn around and see what repeater actually just fired up. Mm-hmm. Or if someone spoke on it, say I made a call out, but my radio's scanning through and I only got the last bit of the call. If the tail just drops instantly, you don't know what repeater they were on. You're like, oh, I don't know. I've got like 20 repeaters in my radio. Which one were they on? So with the long tail, that fixes that. Plus, it means you don't get the squelch noise every time in your radio going right. every time someone finishes a conversation. So that's why you've got a nice long 10-second. I've got a nice long 10-second tail, and you can just talk straight over the top of it. So
yeah. So with a lot of the repeaters that I've heard will tell you when you're checking into the net to say your call sign unkey and then immediately rekey. And I would assume they want you to do that within the tail space.
I don't know why they'd want to do that.
This one will actually say this is right unkey.
Yeah,
and then key,
I got
key
that
up.
too, and that I left that net in a hurry.
Well, my next question is that why do they call it a traffic net when they never have any traffic to pass?
So actually, I lied before. I said we have no nets. We do have a net, and it's on a Wednesday night when we go to our radio club, and it's called the Hobart Car Park Net, because it always happens that when we go to our radio club at 6 p.m, we all get stuck in traffic and we don't move. So we call it the Car Park Net, and we jump on the repeater when that happens. So
gotcha.
It is a traffic net.
But the traffic net here is that you have a message that you want to pass.
So the other people that are on the
what
net,
I'm saying
yeah.
is this is a proper traffic net. We're actually stuck.
Right. Well, see,
traffic.
That's what I thought when they were like, "Oh, traffic net," and then I was like, "I'm going to hear the rush hour condition," and that's not what they were talking about.
Jim, I think that one's for you.
I'm just ignoring him because that joke is really kind of old.
Ham till it hurts.
Damn, he said you played out, Graybeard.
Does the squelch tail change with link systems? Yeah, so if you have a link system and you have a very long tail, then obviously you don't want that linked repeater to be listening to the entire tail as well, because then no one can actually use the linked repeater to talk back. So what we use is CTCSS, and we send a CTCSS tone only when the receiver is active. So it doesn't encode tone over the tail. So then that way, and it also doesn't encode tone over the top of the ID. So it means that you don't get that tail. So that's how we link repeaters using that.
Now, do you have any digital repeaters that you're in charge of, or all
the only
analog FM?
The only digital repeaters, if you want to call it a digital repeater, is APRS digipeaters. Okay. I look after those. I mean, technically they're just an analog radio, but right. Digital repeaters, no. There's a few other people that look after those, that they're a little bit smarter than I am as far as the setting up the digital side of stuff. But the principles are still all the same once you get past the antenna socket. All of that's still the same.
So William Hendrickson, I think it was him, was asking if you guys have any GMRS or PMR equivalent down there. Do you have any repeaters for GMRS, PMR, etc.?
Yeah, so we don't have GMRS. We have what would be the equivalent to the PMR system, where you don't need a license and you can run 5 watts. It's called UHF-CB. It's on 477 megahertz.
That's right.
And you can run 5 watts, and they have repeaters on that. I think they have 16 repeater channels. And again, they're all coordinated across Australia. So so you can use, CB repeaters. And usually most people have got, I don't have it with me, little HTs, or they'll have them in their car. So they use those, and they don't need licenses. But if you've ever listened to UHF-CB in Australia and you've thought that you've heard every single saying or word there is on the planet, you need to listen to UHF-CB, because you'll learn some new words on there. That's for sure.
That's pretty close to American CB too.
I got to tell you,
Do y'all talk like
7200
country Australians? I can't do a country Australian accent like.
I've listened to 27 megahertz from the US, and it's pretty tame compared to what goes on down here.
I don't know. I think 7200 is a little bit more colorful than
Bunch
most
of criminals on CB is what I'm hearing down there.
Do you reckon I need to stream one day when, I mean, CB's 27 megahertz CB is a bit closed at the moment. I could probably stream a UHF CB on my channel.
Awesome.
That would be an interesting stream.
So that's what
Don't know
we're
if I
doing
can
this
monetize
Sunday.
it. Hey?
That's what we're doing this Sunday.
Yeah, we could stream UHF CB. I don't know if we'll have many people that'll want to watch that kind of stuff or hear it, but anyway.
Oh, I'd love it. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I just was curious if your CB guys down there, all talked with faux Southern accents, fake Southern Australian accents. Because I swear to God, everybody up here, if they're from Boston or Oregon,
right, it doesn't matter. You have to do it.
They all talk like they down south. This here big roll of Jim, big roll of Jim, big roll of Jim out of Chi-Town, heading up to Beantown. And I'm like, son, you ain't never been south of Southern Illinois. What?
Aren't you from the South?
No, I'm from Chicago.
Oh, okay. I was just say you can't do a Southern accent.
Huh? I've been down here for 40 years.
Trying to do a Southern accent on top of your accent is quite funny.
Right. It is. It was a caricature.
He's a carpetbagger, is what they would call that.
I am a damn Yankee. That's right, because I came down here, married a Southern girl twice, and stayed. So
David is right. Our language is appalling here. It depends on where you're from, but it is bad. There's
I think
that
I heard
smoke
that
a lamb again.
Yeah,
smoke a lamb is that.
Going ding, ding, ding.
Yeah,
we just default to a Southern accent.
God.
That probably sounds really bad.
Oh, yeah.
You had me dying. We did a stream a long time ago.
You're like,
my insulin pump. You remember?
My insulin pump. My insulin pump into that ham radio operator next door.
Oh,
he sent too much insulin into my veins.
Got a double dose.
I got double dipped. He was putting out 50 watts on 40. Oh, now I've just changed. I don't know where I am now. 50 watts. Keep working on it. Cheers.
I don't want to hold Hayden up. He has important plans after.
Right.
Yeah, I need to pee.
It's
I need to pee.
And he's probably got to make water.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine going another 10 or 15 minutes if that's what we want to do.
So I've done heaps of videos on repeaters. If you want to go more in depth on my channel, there's lots of presentations on there.
Do you have a channel?
What's his channel?
It's called Temporarily Online Ham Radio.
DX.
Right.
DX. DX Adventures Smoking with FEP Labs.
Smoking Labs.
It's a very long channel name.
Right. And I am pasting that channel in the chat right now for everybody too. I can't believe there'd be anybody watching our show that hadn't already seen Hayden, but there you go. All right, guys, I'm going to hit the button. Hayden, thank you so much for being here tonight. That was not nearly as many slides as you promised me. So
we didn't cover a whole heap of stuff, but it can get pretty in depth and pretty confusing. So,
well, we're used to
hopefully
listening
it made
to
sense.
Abe doesn't come here with less than 30 slides. I mean, he's a professional.
I noticed he even slid his slide in halfway through too.
He's like,
wow.
Keep him away from a PowerPoint, man. You can't.
Well, I just wanted the concept of dynamic range is very important and widely misunderstood by ham radio operators. I wanted to make sure that we got that out there.
I think
the unwashed.
That's right. The muggles. I think that is a myth, along with many other things.
So, Jim, the other day,
dynamic range is a myth.
You and I were talking about the thing that Hayden had done when he was at Hamvention. Do you remember that?
Oh, Lord, yeah. Are we